Paul, welcome to the Leanpub launch video for De-Enshittify Windows 11, how to make Windows 11 work for you, not against you. I was wondering if you could take a moment just to talk to us a little bit about yourself first, about who you are
Yeah.
and what you do.
So my name is Paul Thurrott. As you said, I've been covering Windows professionally and personal computing, I guess, for 30 something years. It's 32-ish years. My big break was I signed on with Windows NT magazine back in the very late 1990s, right before they changed the name. And I was part of that organization for many years. And in, I guess, 2015, I went with a smaller company when that, the parent company of the business that used to be Windows NT magazine kind of fell apart. And I was there for several years and then went independent. Oh boy, I have trouble remembering these things. 3 years ago, I guess 3 years ago ish. So now I own my own domain, Thurrott.com, which is where I publish most of my work, I guess.
Yeah, and you've got lots of followers on Twitter, and you've got a YouTube channel, and you've got a blog and things like that, where there's lots of activity. I know. Do you like on your 1250th video on YouTube or something like that?
Oh God, I don't even know. Yeah, probably. So I've been doing Windows Weekly since 2005 or six. I think 2006. I think this is the 20th year.
Yeah, that's amazing.
And then various other podcasts. Yeah.
Yeah, and congratulations on all that, and on going independent, of course, and building such a big audience, and on this new book, De-Enshittify Windows 11. People are probably watching this who know you already, know you from your Windows 10 book and stuff like that, and know how much detail you go into and how helpful, and like how much work it takes. Most of us know how much work it takes to actually write a helpful thing who are in this kind of world. And your books are very helpful because there's so much work behind them. So before we talk about how to de-enshittify Windows 11, I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about what enshittification is, like you do at the beginning of the book, and then I'll ask you specifically, how did Windows get enshittified?
Yeah, so the term enshittification was coined by Cory Doctorow, who's an internet activist and author, rather incredible speaker too, and just a great word to describe something we've all experienced. And it's the type of thing, once you see it everywhere. And so this is the process by which a platform, as he says, it could be an online service, a technical product, it could be outside of technology as well, but we focus on the personal technology stuff, is good to their users at first. Then they abuse their users by being good for the business customers. And then finally, they abuse the business customers to get all the value for themselves. And so there's a lot of classic examples of this: Spotify, Netflix, Facebook, where we all have these memories of, remember when that was really good? And why doesn't it do anything I want anymore? And why am I looking at a feed of ads instead of the things my friends were doing on Facebook or whatever that might be? And so that's where that came out. And just real quick, I mean, coming up in the world of paper-based publications back when, I was publishing books 30 years ago, we had Windows Secrets books and other books like that at the time. There were these enormous tomes. Eventually, I actually wrote a couple of those myself. And, the focus back then for people like me was how to help people find things that they wouldn't be able to find themselves, And with the rise of the internet, the focus shift more to like, okay, this is going to be a resource for people all in one place. Eventually, you want to do electronic publishing, which is why I landed on Leanpub, because IDG at the time, my publisher, wasn't really interested in doing anything beyond just those big books that were never going to be up to date, right? They were frozen in time the second they went out the door, if there were problems, etc. And it just occurred to me in the past year or so that the focus really has shifted again because Windows has become enshittified, and a lot of the work and effort I put in is trying to help people either fix or work around those problems. And my books have gotten progressively bigger. The Windows 10 field guide was almost 500 pages long. The Windows 11 field guide is almost 1,200 pages long. And I was working on an update to that. I wanted to make it smaller, but still as useful. And finally, I realized, I need to really focus and just do this part of it, which, focus on the enshittification and how can people fix the big problems. And then from there, some of the more minor annoyances, I guess.
Yeah, thanks for that really great explanation. It's one thing you go through at the beginning of the book is how I think it started with the way you position the sort of story at the beginning is it started with Windows 8, which had this kind of super touch-based kind of interface kind of thingy. And then, but also ominously introduced ads
Yeah.
into the
Windows 8.
operating system platform kind of thing.
Yeah. Everyone remembers Windows 8 for all the wrong reasons. There were a lot of really good things about Windows 8 as well, under the covers or on the desktop side. But yeah, the the touch first stuff is interesting because I'm not even sure that's enshittification, but it was something everyone hated, right? I mean, it's something no one liked really. But I saw ads in some of these modern apps they had at the time, and I wrote an article at that time where I described that as a slippery slope. And I said, Microsoft doesn't put ads inside of a product like Windows, something you pay for, unless they intend to do more of that in the future.
Right.
This is going to snowball. And that happened in fairly dramatic ways, starting with Windows 10, which was nice in a way because they had brought back the classic desktop UIs, the default, which I think a lot of people celebrated. But it also included all these different forms of what we now call enshittification, thanks to Cory Doctorow. Behaviors that are objectively bad for people, for the customers, for the people using it. And part of the excuse was that Windows 10 was essentially free, right? It was free for everybody. If you had Windows 7 or Windows 8 point whatever, or even Windows Phone, you could get the free upgrade to Windows 10. But the thing you paid for, so to speak, or the way you paid was in other ways, right? Microsoft was always going to keep this thing up to date, which they've escalated in dramatic form as well. And introducing all kinds of reliability issues and lots of chaos, especially as we get into Windows 11. But there was, forced telemetry where there was no way to turn off the feedback. You had to send it to Microsoft, especially in the beginning. I had forgotten some of this. This is how I cope with things. I think I just block it out. But, when Windows 10 first shipped, there were horrible forms of telemetry, and they finally scaled it back because the antitrust regulators started asking questions. And of course, they made that look like it was something they wanted to do themselves. They were doing this for people, we're pro-consumer, et cetera, but that's, not exactly what it is. So, you flash forward to Windows 11 and now there's ads all over the system, recommendations and suggestions, there's tracking. They're selling your personal data to their own advertising business internally to Microsoft advertising partners. The forced telemetry, there's crapware built into the start menu when you first boot up. It keeps flashing things for you to do stuff that it wants you to do. Microsoft Edge is this incredible vector for terribleness where if you try not to use it, they'll force you to use it. They'll constantly harass you to use it in different ways. If you do use it, they'll still harass you. They'll harass you to use it in ways they want you to use it. If you change any setting, they'll come up, well, maybe you should do this. You should, use Bing as the default search engine. They want to get you in front of their advertising.
Yeah, that's very interesting. I mean, as a Mac user, and also an Office user, I remember, I just got a new computer. So I think this might've been solved in a way, but it used to be that if you were a Mac user and you had Office, Microsoft Auto Update had to be on all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And it was in your list of icons. Like if you did Command Tab, it was always there.
It's just there. Yeah.
It was always there. And I found a couple of ways on Terminal to kind of get rid of it and stuff, but those do scary system things that might affect other things. And I remember too, the experience of when I go to Word or PowerPoint now, it's for example, I tried to just create a PDF from a PowerPoint and it looked terrible. And it was because you have to click this option, optimize for print. So it's kind of what am I, so but as you say, they're trying to force you down certain channels. And
that's right.
I remember actually having, I don't know what you'll think of this story, but I remember once when I moved and got a new book. I'd been on a PC for a long time and I got a Mac. And so I opened it up and there was this chime. And then there was this little, I think it might've been a video display or maybe it was just an image, but I was okay, the first thing I want to do is get rid of that stupid rude chime. And the second thing I want to do is get rid of that image and replace it with one I want. And neither of these things you could do. Directly. I had to get an app or whatever. This was way back in 2008. But I remember going to in Canada, we had something called the Future Shop, which was an electronics store kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I went to one of those and I was just doing something else. And I saw a guy, right? A Future Shop guy. And I was like, hey man, do you know, in the Mac section, I was like, do you know how to turn off the chime and change the image when you open up a Mac? And he looked at me and he goes, why would you want to do that?
Exactly.
And he goes,
yes.
I mean, we've all seen that before, right? If you ever did something on Stack Overflow, the first responder is always, why would you want to do that? That's stupid.
Yes.
But he said to me, It's like the opening credits of a sitcom like Friends. Don't
Yeah,
you
which
want to just see what
I also
Apple?
would like to skip, you know,
Yeah, well, that
or at least have that option, right?
and I was like, oh, like that. I had anyway through that experience, I had like a deep insight into how like
Mhm.
people. There's a personality type that just wants things to be the way, whatever the way they're presented to you.
Yes.
They want them to be that way, and
This is
object
like
to exactly what you're doing here, which is like,
it's almost
no,
a Kids
take
in the Hall
control.
skit where I did 2 studies for Microsoft around they don't have this anymore, but the signature PC program. It kind of evolved into the Surface line of PCs, right? These clean, well, now they're enshittified, but at the time, clean computers. And universally, people wanted these clean software images and the signature PC version, except 1 out of 10 on average liked the other stuff, liked having more stuff. They thought having more stuff was more value, even though it was actually detracting from the experience.
Yeah.
But to your Apple point, I mean, I think, where everyone is following this Apple model of control now. So it's not just Apple, but, dictatorships rely on the compliance of their, in this case, customers or people.
Yeah.
And, yeah, that's what they want. They want someone to say, why would you want to change anything? It's perfect. The way they handed it down from Mount Olympus is perfect.
Right.
It's like, well, is it?
Yeah, no, and usually not. And your book is really great about how to sort of take control. And you talk about this at the beginning too. That like, of course, regulators play an important, very high level role that can sometimes reach right down into the software that's on your computer when you buy it. But waiting for the regulator to solve your problem is a pretty long term wishful thinking kind of way of solving problems that you have in front of you right now.
Today, yeah, I mean, Cory Doctorow wrote a book, right, called Enshittification, and I don't remember the exact tagline, but it was, this is the problem, and this is how you fix it, and that's what's actually missing from his book, right? And he admits this. He talks about this a lot. He's on a giant book tour now, so I hear him speak all the time, but on YouTube or whatever. But I decided with, given my background and the way I approach things, I said, I'm gonna try to fix this for Windows, right? I have to stay in my lane here. I can't solve all of the problems in the world. I'm not going to cure cancer or whatever, but can we actually fix these problems? And it's a moving target. There's no doubt a month or 2 from now, a year from now, there'll be some new feature in Windows or some new version of Windows, and they'll keep trying, and the Rebel Alliance will keep fighting back. That's all we can do. Yeah.
Speaking of fighting back, so let's I just want to give you an opportunity to talk about one example, and let's talk about OneDrive.
Yeah.
What are some of the recommendations that you have for de-enshittify OneDrive?
So, I mean, OneDrive by and large is actually very useful, right? Most people use Windows. If you're in the Microsoft ecosystem or whatever, you have a Microsoft 365 subscription, especially, you get that terabyte of storage per user. It's useful. They have this integrated functionality in operating system where you can see all of your files in OneDrive, even if they're not synced down to the computer. If you double click one, it will download it at that point and you can access that file, right? And that's great. You can mark folders to be available offline, so that if you're on a plane or you just don't have an internet connection, you can still access your documents or whatever it might be. It's actually very useful. Early on with Windows 11, they added a feature that's evolved over time, but basically Windows backup. And the idea is that there's a bunch of stuff to it really, but OneDrive folder backup is a primary component of it. And the idea there is that we're going to take your desktop documents and pictures folders that are local to your computer, and we're going to sync them with the version that's up in OneDrive. And the point there is one day, maybe you open your computer, it doesn't come on, something's wrong, there's a hardware failure, whatever it might be. No worries, your documents are safe up in the cloud, and that means you can access them from any device. It could be a phone, another computer, a Mac, whatever. And that is incredibly useful. I don't use those folders the way maybe Microsoft designed them or the way many people probably do. I have my own folder structure in OneDrive. And what I want to do is sync those folders, not the documents, desktop pictures folders, right? But what I found, this was about 2.5 years ago now, was, and I doubt myself, right? Like any human being would, you always think it's your fault. I started noticing this behavior where I don't turn on folder backup. I said no to folder backup. It was offered to me during setup. It was offered to me later via pop-up little box, like a notification. OneDrive might have, at different times, there are different ways to do it. Sometimes actually File Explorer would even offer this. I would say no every time. And then one day I noticed it was on. And I thought, oh, that's curious. Maybe I made a mistake. But I review a lot of laptops. I have to bring up a lot of Windows installs. I reset computers all the time, the nature of what I do. And I started seeing it more and more. And I realized, wait a minute, this is new. This is malicious behavior. What is this? What fresh hell is this? And I realized they were forcing it on, at least not everybody. And there are conditions. I don't understand all of the conditions that have to apply. I think it has something to do with the amount of storage you're using, that maybe the percentage of storage you're using, whatever it might be. But at some point that you flip a switch internally, you don't realize you flipped it, and Microsoft just turns it on. These days, it happens to me right away. So I would say within 10 minutes of bringing up a new Windows install, it just flips and turns on. It's nothing I've ever wanted ever. And so in that case, this is an interesting one. It's not as severe as Microsoft Edge because it's mostly useful for most people. Like, I really do actually like OneDrive, but this one thing, this is like the Mac chime or the image where, look, maybe a lot of people do like this, but I should have the option to not do it, or just to do it my way, which is what I had been doing, and I still do. So I took steps to protect my documents, because you get into a weird situation here where now you're syncing things that are on this computer and are not on this computer, and now they're in one place. And if I turn that feature off, which you can do today, it asks you where you want them, but where you want all those files. But that means if you decide I want it on the computer, it's going to pull everything out of OneDrive and put it in that folder in your computer.
Right.
If you don't have enough space for all those files, they're all commingled. There's no way to separate them out. It's a mess. And so that, to me, is just a classic example of Microsoft disregarding the needs of actual human beings that are customers and doing this thing because they want you to use this storage. They want you to pay for more. And that's the only reason this is happening. Now, they can present a happy picture where we're doing it for you. We want your documents to be safe, and God bless you. Yes. But there's this malicious behavior behind it as well. And I just think you should have the choice.
I couldn't agree more. And this book is full of choices. Paul, thank you very much for taking the time today to do this video with me and for all of us. The book is De-Enshittify Windows 11, How to Make Windows 11 Work for You, Not Against You. The book is just as thoughtful and just as useful as the explanation that Paul just gave about the good and the bad about OneDrive. And I highly recommend it to anyone who's using Windows 11 or is interested in sort of like how you can take control of your devices and things like that. So thank you very much, Paul.
Thank you. And thank you just for Leanpub. I love the service, and I'm so happy it exists. I'm a very happy user.
Thank you.